if Archana is there on the, if she is there, she can start reading.
Yes, Rangada, I'm there.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Rangada. If we can pass through these two stages of the inner change without being arrested or fixed in either, we are admitted to a greater divine equality, which is capable of a spiritual ardor and tranquil passion of delight, a rapturous, all understanding, and all possessing equality of the perfected soul, an intense and even wideness and fullness of its being, embracing all things. This is the supreme period, and the passage to it is through the joy of a total self-giving to the divine and to the universal mother. For strength is then crowned by a happy mastery, peace deepens into bliss, the position of the divine calm is uplifted and made the ground for the position of the divine movement. But if this greater perfection is to arrive, the soul's impartial high seatedness, looking down from above on the flux of forms and personalities and movements and forces, must be modified and change into a new sense of strong and calm submission and a powerful and intense surrender. This submission will be no longer a resigned acquiescence, but a glad acceptance, for there will be no sense of suffering or of the bearing of a burden of cross. Love and delight and the joy of self giving will be its brilliant texture. And this surrender will be not only to a divine will which we perceive and accept and obey, but to a divine wisdom in the will which we recognize, and a divine love in it which we feel and rapturously suffer. The wisdom and love, the wisdom and love of a supreme spirit and self of ourselves, and all with which we can achieve a happy and perfect unity. A lonely power, peace, and stillness is the last word of the philosophic equality of the sage, but the soul in its integral experience liberates itself from this self created status and enters into the sea of a supreme and all embracing ecstasy of the beginningless and endless beatitude of the eternal. Then we are at last capable of receiving all contacts with a blissful equality because we feel in them the touch of the imperishable love and delight, the happiness absolute that hides ever in the heart of things. The gain of this culmination in universal and equal rapture is the soul's delight and the opening gates of the bliss that is infinite, the joy that surpasses all understanding.
Quite a big para. So, we'll see what we say. If we can pass through these two stages. You remember what the two stages are? The first stage is one of endurance. No? You have to endure the impacts of the world coming on you. Okay, that's the first. And he says it's a heroic period. You know, you have to make an intense effort not to be affected by things coming from the outside world and even your own thoughts. You should be absolutely calm and quiet. Then that's the effort which you have to practice at level 1 when you are in the ignorance. No? The level 1 is the ignorance that we normally are. You have to start practicing that. Then when the second stage is when you go to the spiritual planes of consciousness, which I call level 2, okay, the higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind over mind, you become absolutely a witness of all that's happening in the physical world and you are not affected by anything. So there is a footnote, Udasina. There is the Gita's Udasina, Udasina, seated above. You're not affected by anything. Your connection with the body-mind life is cut and you have nothing to do with the body-mind life nor the world. It's a transcendental consciousness. Now, but what happens is, at level 1, you are affected by everything. You try not to be affected, but you are affected by everything that comes. People's opinions, their movements, at a mental level, vital level, and physical level, you are affected quite badly. But you have to develop the capacity to endure. It's a period of endurance. Second period is, you are not affected by anything, but there is no power. It's the peace, Srimno calls that peace a negative peace. Because what he calls the positive peace is when you get bliss also. Okay. So you are not affected in the second level. You are not affected at all by the pleasant and the unpleasant. But at the third level, which is the supramental level, that's what he's speaking about now. He'll go on. You enjoy everything. That which was unpleasant also now becomes pleasant to you. That he calls positive. Okay, so first of all, an ignorance. Secondly, a peace which is negative. And third, which is a peace which is positive. Because you get also delight and existence and you enjoy everything in the physical world. So that's the brief, the first two stages, and now he's going to talk about the third stage. I read each sentence. If we can pass through these two stages of the inner change without being arrested, he's saying very clearly without being arrested, because 90% of yogis in India, they get arrested there thinking that that's enough. Okay? The liberation, you are liberated and you are not bothered about the body-mind life. It will anyway disappear at the end of their lifespan. It will disappear. So they don't bother about it. But simply saying, without waiting for that, go even higher up and get the next one where you get power also and ananda. So if we can pass through these two stages of the inner chain without being arrested or fixed in either, okay, in either this or that, okay, the lower and the higher, we are admitted to a greater divine equality, which is order, a spiritual. So I have intense warmth and love. That's what ardor means. Intense warmth and love. And tranquil passion of delight. Now look at that. Passion is hardly ever tranquil. But if you are at the third level, tranquil passion of delight. A rapturous, all understanding and all possessing equality of the perfected soul. Note the word equality. At the second level, there is no possessing at all. You only possess the peace. But all possessing means everything that comes into you, you can possess. You are master of all that. All possessing. So we are very fond of the word possessing. Huh? So, which means when you possess something, you are master of that. So all possessing equality of the perfected soul, an intense and even wideness and fullness of its being. Now note the word intense but also even wideness. Okay? You are open to the world and fullness of its being, embracing all things. In the beginning, you are not embracing at all. You are rejecting things which are painful to you at level 1. But now at level 2, you are embracing nothing at all. You are embracing only the peace that is coming to you. But at the third level, you are embracing all things. You welcome all things coming from the divine. Those things which are unpleasant now become pleasant. Okay? Embracing all things. This is a supreme period, and the passage to it is through the joy of a total self-giving to the divine and to the universal mother. So it can be both. Okay? Either to the divine, the Purusha, or to the universal mother. That also is possible. For strength is then crowned by a happy mastery. Peace deepens into bliss. So there you are. At level 2, peace need not deepen into bliss. It can. It doesn't. There are many people who have had that. Okay? But it need not. In those cases, there is no bliss at all in the second one. When he had the experience of the silent mind in Baroda, emotion, you get all possessing equality. All tranquil passion. Normally, tranquil and passion are not good. They don't go together. But in our case, definitely don't go together. But here, tranquil passion, all possessing equality. So that's what he's meaning by peace deepens into bliss. The possession of the divine calm is uplifted and made the ground for the possession of the divine movement. Now note again the word possession. When you are possessing something, you are perfectly a master of it and made the ground for the possession of the divine movement. What movement? He is dictating terms to you and you act in the physical world. The actions are not yours anymore, but those of the divine. He is dictating terms to you and you just carry them out happily. You become a happy slave of the divine. But if this greater perfection is to arrive, the soul's impartial high-seatedness, looking down from above on the flux of forms and personalities and movements and forces, see how inclusive he is. Huh? He's saying this high-seatedness is level 2, but high-seatedness is not enough. That's what he's telling you. I read that sentence again because I got stuck in that phrase. Forms and personalities and movements and forces. He's including everything. Flux of forms, of personalities, human beings, movements, things which are outside you, movements in the physical world, and forces which you may see or may not see. Vital forces, mental forces, even physical forces must be modified and changed into a new sense of strong and calm submission and intense surrender. Now note again how interesting he uses of words and try to imagine that. Powerful and intense surrender. Normally a surrender is passive. Isn't it? You just surrender passively to your enemy. Okay? But here you are surrendering to the divine and it's a powerful and intense surrender. Quite different when you surrender to the Lord. Powerful and intense. This submission will be no longer a resigned acquiescence. Just what happens at the second level. Sometimes it can happen even at the first level when you accept unpleasant things as though coming from the divine. Resignedly, religiously you accept it. Resigned acquiescence can happen at the level 1 also. But it is definitely there at level 2. Okay? But a glad acceptance. There you are. Everything that is coming in, you are accepting gladly. For there will be no sense of suffering or of the bearing of a burden or cross. Love and delight and the joy of self-giving will be its brilliant texture. Love and delight and joy. By the way, they always go together, no? Even in the physical world. Love, delight and joy. They always go together. Of self-giving will be its brilliant texture. And this surrender will be not only to a divine will, which we perceive and accept. At level 1, we don't perceive the divine will. You in the second level also, you may not perceive the divine will, but you will be acting. Almost, maybe unconsciously, even you will be acting with divine will. But at the end, obeying, which we perceive and accept and obey. So, 3 words. Perceiving, you may not accept. And accepting also, you may not obey. So see how he uses his words, so accurate. First of all, you perceive and you remain without accepting. I perceive, I see it, but I don't accept it. Okay. But at that third level, you will be accepting. And when you accept also, you may not obey. Okay, it happens in the physical world also. No? When you accept somebody's idea, but you may not be able to agree fully with it. So 3 words. Perceive, accept and obey. Each word when Srila puts in, it has got so much content and he doesn't use words uselessly. The slight variation of meanings are there always. Perceive, accept and obey. This is his style throughout. Everywhere you will see that. So don't glide over these phrases and look at each word and understand what he's saying. Very, very accurate. Perceive, accept and obey. But to a divine wisdom in the will, which we recognize, and a divine love in it, which we feel and rapturously suffer. We suffer rapturously. So the word suffer here doesn't mean necessarily to suffer, it means to undergo, to experience. That we experience rapturously. The wisdom and love of a supreme spirit and self of ourselves, and all with which we can achieve a happy and perfect unity. A lonely power, peace and stillness is the last word of the philosophic equality of the sage. The philosophic equality of the sage is the, if you remember, level 2. Okay? A lonely power, peace and stillness. He is not using the words bliss here at all. Huh? It's level 2. A lonely power. And interesting, lonely power. There is a certain blankness and a certain oneness there. That's why he's using the word lonely. Lonely power, peace, and nothing else is there. Only peace is there. That's why lonely power. Peace can be there. Sometimes power is there also. Power, peace, and stillness is the last one of the philosophic equality of the sage. The philosophic equality of the sage, level 2. But the soul in its interior experience liberates itself from the self-created status and enters into the sea of supreme and all-embracing ecstasy of the beginningless and endless beatitude of the eternal. That's the third level, which normally he identifies with the supermind. Okay? Or you can get even touches of the supermind. Okay? So, note interestingly how he's using the word self-created status. Okay? By your own effort, you have come up to that level 2. So it is self-created status. Status is a static condition. Okay? But now you have to go beyond the static condition and go into a dynamic condition. Enter into the sea of supreme and all-embracing ecstasy of the beginningless and endless. He could have said eternal and infinite, but he's using the word beginningless and endless beatitude of the eternal. Then we are at last capable of receiving all contacts, including pleasant and unpleasant, painful and pleasant. What was painful also now you can receive contacts with a blissful equality, because we feel in them the touch of the imperishable love and delight, the happiness absolute that hides ever in the heart of things. The gain of this culmination in a universal and equal rapture is the soul's delight and the opening gates of the bliss that is infinite, the joy that surpasses all understanding. I think this phrase, joy that surpasses all understanding, is biblical. Okay? So that's what he's saying. So he has completed the development of the annihilation of the ego, 3 stages: endurance, philosophical equality, level 2, and complete possession of the divine, ananda, power and bliss, 3rd level.
Ranganath, what is the word?
Yes, Tarika?
What is the word you use? The joy that surpasses all understanding is what you said?
I said biblical.
Oh,
In the
biblical.
Bible, that surpasses all understanding. This phrase is used in the Bible as far as I remember.
Oh,
I may be wrong, but that's the impression I have.
okay.
And Shremdo read the Bible several times, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He found it beautiful literature. He found it very good. So, all right, we can go to the next one. Who will read? Tarika, you'll read?
Yes.
Shall I read?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Yasmin. Okay, you let Yasmin read. She is the elder to you. Tarika?
May not be Rangada. May not be. I'm not sure.
You are also a grandmother after all, no?
Yeah.
I'm not a grandmother.
Yes, I forgot. Okay, start.
Before this labor for the annihilation of desire and the conquest of the soul's equality can come to its absolute perfection and fruition, that turn of the spiritual movement must have been completed, which leads to the abolition of the sense of ego. But for the worker, the renunciation of the egoism of action is the most important element in this change. For even when, by giving up the fruits and the desires of the fruits to the master of the sacrifice, we have parted with the egoism of rajasic desire, we may still have kept the egoism of the worker. Still, we are subject to the sense that we are ourselves the doer of the act, ourselves its source, and ourselves the giver of the sanction. It is still the I that chooses and determines. It is still the I that undertakes the responsibility and feels the demerit or the merit.
Okay, smallish para by Srimno standards. Before this labor,
Ranganath,
yes, tell me.
in our book, it is still continuing.
Oh, that's the difference between CWSA and SABCA. SABCA, they made all these small changes. Okay, so I don't know. I'm not seeing the manuscript, but it depends. Sometimes some may have left a line. Okay, then
That's
the
Shakti.
special proofreaders must have thought that this is a new section.
Shall I read the next para also? It's very small.
Okay, do that. Do that.
An entire removal of this separative ego sense is an essential aim of our yoga. If any ego is to remain in us for a while, it is only a form of it which knows itself to be a form and is ready to disappear as soon as a true center of consciousness is manifested or built in us. The true center is a luminous formation of one consciousness and a pure channel and instrument of one existence, a support for the individual manifestation and action of the universal force. It gradually reveals behind it the true person in us, the central eternal being, an everlasting being of the Supreme, a power and portion of the transcendent Shakti.
Okay, so there is a footnote to that Shakti. So, Yasmin, read that. Oh, it's in English, it's in Sanskrit. Amsha Sanatana Para Prakriti Jiva Bhuta. Now, this is a very interesting thing. We'll discuss that as soon as we come to that. Okay? This, very often this is quoted. This is a Para Prakriti Jiva Bhuta. So, then we come to now, we go to each sentence. Before this labor for the annihilation of desire and the conquest of the soul's equality can come to its absolute perfection and fruition, that turn of the spiritual movement must have been completed, which leads to the abolition of the sense of ego. So, removing of the ego is very important. But normally, when your consciousness goes out of your body-mind life and goes to the level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness, ego has been largely eliminated. Okay, that ego can be of many types. Okay, Shendra is discussing here the ego of the sense of doership, the worker. Okay, there may be what is called the instrumental ego. Okay? There can be, once you get rid of it, when you go to the spiritual level of consciousness, like you did in Baroda, okay, you feel that you are not connected with your body-mind life. You are not connected with the world either. You are in a transcendental condition. And the work is going on. The body is going on acting. You are also speaking, but you are not speaking anymore. It's your body-mind life that is speaking, acting, eating, sleeping, walking. So you feel yourself unconnected with it. So you realize that you are not a doer. That's a very big realization in any yoga. You realize that you are not the doer. So who is the doer? Universal nature. Just as universal nature is making the tree grow, and the tree doesn't think I am growing, but because we have an ego, we think that we are growing. Okay, so we are doing. So that simply is saying the instrumental ego can come up. Yes, I know that I am not doing, but I am an instrument of God. He is working through me. So that instrumental ego can come. So that instrumental ego also has to be removed. Okay, that's what he's saying. If you want to enter the last stage. So I read each sentence now. Before this labor for the annihilation of desire and the conquest of the soul's equality can come. By the way, you must be very careful. The conquest of the soul's equality. Okay, the soul is conquering and acquiring equality. It's not that the soul's equality is conquered. You have to be very careful. Those who are already on the path of yoga will not make that mistake, of course. But the language can be a little sometimes misleading. The conquest of the soul's equality can come to its absolute perfection and fruition. That turn of the spiritual movement must have been completed, which leads to the abolition of the sense of ego. There is a conquest of ego, and there is also a conquest of the sense of ego. That sense of separation. Okay, you may not be in the cosmic consciousness even when you are in the spiritual planes, and then you feel yourself not one with everybody. That's a cosmic consciousness, but that may not be there. Okay, so the sense of ego also must go, not only the ego. But for the worker, the renunciation of the egoism of action is the most important element in this change. For even when giving up the fruits and the desire for the fruits to the master of the sacrifice, we have parted with the egoism of rajasic desire. We may still have kept the egoism of the worker. Still, we are subject to the sense that we are ourselves the doer of the act. Ourselves is source and ourselves the giver of the sanction. It is still the I that chooses and determines. It is still the I that undertakes the responsibility and feels the merit or the demerit. We take the credit and the results that I am getting from my action, I am responsible for it. That's what you do. Now, an entire removal of this separative ego sense is an essential aim of our yoga. Note very carefully, our yoga. Because in the other yogas, this last thing is not necessary. You get liberation and you are very happy. They stop there. That's why Srila said in the earlier paragraph, if you remember, without stopping. Okay? Many people do stop at the second level. So, an entire removal of this separative ego sense is an essential aim of our yoga. If any ego is to remain in us for a while, it is only a form of it which knows itself to be a form and is ready to disappear as soon as the true center of consciousness is manifested or built in us. There are two things that need to be explained here, very interesting. If it's only a form of it which knows itself to be a form and is ready to disappear as soon as the true center of consciousness is manifested in us. So which is the true center of consciousness? It can be the self or it can be the psychic being also. Okay? And also note, manifested or built in us. Again, the accuracy of what he's saying. When the true center is manifesting in you, it's a descent. But when you are building it with your own effort and your own prayers and your own aspiration, it is built in you. The lower is built and then it comes down. So it can be either this or that, or it can be both together. When you are prepared, there can be a descent. Or you can ascend into it. That's the thing. Now, he's saying very interesting, this will look at it. If any ego is to remain in us for a while, why is he saying this? Because if your ego is not there and you are always at the higher level of consciousness, very often you can be in trance. But if you have to work in the physical world, you are subject to the laws of the physical world, at least at the body level, not at your mental level or your psychic level or your, even the vital level, it may not be there, but the body level is there. So you have to be subject to that in the physical world. So you have to be subject to not the ego, but a form of the ego, a very subtle thing. So I'll give you, I've told this before also, but I'm just telling you how Ramakrishna used to do that. You know, whenever he after he realized the infinite, the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he used to always shoot up and his consciousness to be outside his body, and he used to go into a trance. Okay, Mother and Sevda never went into a trance. Okay, towards the end, Mother used to go into a trance very often while giving blessings. She would just droop and go into a trance. But I don't think Srimad also went into a trance once or twice, because he says, I was in Parabrahman consciousness for several hours. So that it happens, it does happen. But you have to train yourself to come down to the physical world, be in the waking consciousness, and still not be subject to ignorance. So, but if you have to work in the physical world, you have to come down. So Ramakrishna used to constantly go up and remain there in a trance. Okay, he would not be aware of the physical world. Then his divine mother told him, you can't do this. You have to be in the physical world. There will be many people who will come to you and you have to teach them. So what he used to do, he used to leave a small desire, and that desire is going to pull him down. Okay, so that desire has to be a harmless one. So he would say, I'm a jol khabo. This is what Srimad means by the form of ego. Okay? So it's not the ego, but it's a form of ego. The form is something not substantial at all. So some element of egoism, you can call it form of ego, has to be there if you have to be in the physical world. But as soon as you want, you can switch over and the true consciousness will come down into you. So it's a very interesting thing what he's saying. That's why he's saying, if any ego is to remain in us for a while, it's only a form of it which knows itself to be a form and is ready to disappear as soon as a true center of consciousness is manifested or built in us. Note also the language, manifested or built in us. Manifestation is a descent, and building up is your ascent. From the lower level you are going up, your consciousness goes up. Then both can happen. In Srimad yoga, ascent and descent both are necessary. In most of the other yogas, only the ascent is necessary. They don't care for the descent. So that brings us to the, what is the time? 33. We have 7 minutes. So maybe we can read the next one. No. We have to do the next para, no? An entire removal. But that I read. That true center. What is the true center we discussed just now? Either the self above or the psychic being. That's a true center. Is a luminous formulation of the one consciousness and a pure channel and instrument of the one existence. Why is he saying luminous formulation? Because even the body is a formulation of God. Okay, even the vital is a formulation, but it's not luminous. But the psychic or the self is a luminous formulation of the one consciousness and a pure channel and instrument of the one existence. A support for the individual manifestation and action of the universal force, it gradually reveals behind it the true person in us, not the person PCAP. So that's your, not the ego, but your, the true center. Same because it's the central being. Here also you use the word center. Here use the word center. It can be either the self or the psychic being. And they can also merge, by the way. The psychic can merge into the self. That also can happen, or it can remain separate also. A support for the individual manifestation and action of the universal force, it gradually reveals behind it the true person in us. The true person, as you said just now, your real personality is your body, mind, life. Remember, normally he uses it with a lowercase, personal, P lowercase. The central eternal being, an everlasting being of the Supreme, a power and portion of the transcendent Shakti. Then this is the Ishvara Sarva Bhutana, Ansha Sanatana, Para Prakriti Jiva Bhuta. The Para Prakriti is the Divine Mother. Nature at the highest level is Para Prakriti. Prakriti at the lower level is the Divine Mother who has come down and has become only mechanical energy and unconscious energy. Okay, that's nature. unconscious energy. But your being is coming from your soul is coming from the Ishvara. But your being, your body, mind, life, and the rest of you is a formulation of the Paraprakriti. There is an interesting difference between the two. Ansha Sanatana Paraprakriti Jiva Bhuta. Okay? So we have only 4 minutes left. So if there are any questions or even any discussion to be done, we can do that. We won't take up the next para because it's very long. Chandra is going to, yeah.
It's the quality of the surrender also matter. Is the
Yes, very much, no? Depends. It can be half surrender, it can be 3/4 surrender, it can be full surrender. Full surrender is very difficult to do.
yes.
Because the mind can surrender, but the vital doesn't surrender. And the body also need not surrender. So the full surrender is your whole being is surrendering. Okay?
How means body surrender? It means, can you explain me how body surrenders?
I suppose it becomes an absolute instrument of the divine, your will in you. But the body surrendering, that was what Mother was working on towards the end of her life. Okay? She was saying, because the body is not at all receptive, no? It is almost like matter. So, but she was working on each cell. That would be the body surrender. It's easy to understand the mind surrender. We can also understand that the mind may surrender, but the vital will not surrender. But we can also understand the vital also surrendering, but still the body, that attitude of surrender has to be brought down into the body. That was what she was doing. Okay? It is unbelievable what she was doing. And if that happens, then you become an element of the supramental race. Totally you are in the divine hands.
Anyway, it's difficult for me to understand this. That
It's
how
difficult for
body
everybody, Shilpa. It's difficult for everybody, not only you.
Understand it, one can read Mother's agenda. It is full of the yoga that she was doing in the body.
Yeah. Okay, so we can stop here today if you want.
Okay. Over Ranganath. Thank you, Ranganath.
Everyone, everybody. So
Yes, I will take a note.